Good morning, fellas, and welcome back to My Prize Garage. My name is Matt, and today I wanted to talk about two game show contestants, Larson and Terry Kniess. Both of them did extraordinary things on their respective game shows, but they've often been labeled as cheaters, which has always been a pet peeve of mine. So we'll take a look at both of their appearances, and I'll talk about why both of their wins are legitimate. Alright, let's get started. We'll start on Press Your Luck. The show's board is full of cash and prizes, as well as whammies that bankrupt you. And they occasionally eat the folks working on the show. Don't worry about it.
Anybody in here? Whammy, whammy! Look at this. They must have taken the wardrobe man, and he was such a nice guy.
But on the flip side, there are some spaces that give you money and an extra spin, which in theory would allow you to keep playing indefinitely. And that's exactly what happened in 1984. Larson started watching Press Your Luck when it premiered. After some time studying the show, he realized there weren't a lot of patterns the big board cycled through. The randomizer only had 5 possible patterns, so he went ahead and memorized them all. Now I'm going to show you a couple of spins from when he was on the show, and I want you to pay attention to these two spaces.
A hunk of money to ride. 37,601. Wow. Stop! Go again. Oh my. Oh my. $40,000 riding on one spin. Stop!
Notice anything? Yup, not only do those spaces never contain a whammy, but they also will always give you an extra spin. Starting from the top left and moving clockwise, we can number the spaces on the board from 1 to 18. Larson's target spaces were 4 and 8. But 4 was preferable because it was the big bucks space, which contained the most money on the whole board. Space number 4 ranged from $3,000 to $5,000, but space number 8 maxed out at $1,000. So the main pattern he memorized was one that allowed him to hit space number 4 consistently. He would wait for the board to light up on space 2, then it would go 12, 1, 9, 4. Bang! Another couple $1,000s into his bank. Once he figured out the pattern, Larson started practicing the timing, with the pause button on his VCR remote. In May of 1984, he headed to Los Angeles to audition for the show. He was interviewed by Bobby Edwards, the show's contestant supervisor. Edwards was unwilling to let Larson on the show at first, but the show's executive producer Bill Carruthers overruled Edwards' decision and let him on. Larson's episode was scheduled to air Friday, June 8th, 1984. His opponents were Jamie Leitris and the previous game's champion Ed Long. Michael earned 3 spins in the first question round, trailing Ed's 4 and Jamie's 10. Luckily for Michael, he had his tricks up his sleeve. Oh. His very first spin was a whammy. Well beans. No, that's not the end of the world. The first round has less money and fewer extra spins available on the board. So if he's gonna make a mistake, now's the time to do it. Another pattern he memorized went 2, 9, 17, 8, which is what he was trying to hit here. But he accidentally stopped too early, so he landed on 17 instead of 8. Larson hit space number 4 on his remaining 2 spins. That probably wouldn't raise any red flags backstage, but Michael knew he was about to go on a roll in the next round. Ignore the fact that he's in last place right now, please. Thank you kindly. Before the second round on the big board, Michael earned another 7 spins from the question round, and boy howdy did he make the most of them. He made a couple of mistakes, but over the next 15 spins, he kept earning cash, prizes, and extra spins, without ever hitting a whammy. Each spin was worth up to $5,000, so he was able to rack up a ton of money really quickly. And then whoop, the episode's over. Yup, Larson's turn took so long, they couldn't edit the game down to fit a half-hour time slot. So those first 15 spins were shown on Friday's episode, then they picked up again the following Monday. When they came back, Larson remained in control of the board, and he kept on trucking. Eventually, he hit $100,000, and passed his remaining spins to Jamie. After Ed took his turn, Jamie took her spins as well, and passed some back to Michael. On Press Your Luck, if you're past any spins, you're required to take them, so Michael was at risk of whamming away all his money. But he made it through those last 3 spins unscathed, and he passed 2 additional spins he'd earned right back to Jamie. At this point, he was sitting at $110,237, a single-day record in game show history at the time. Since then, several other people have won well over $100,000 in a single day, thanks in part to all the million-dollar game shows out there. But $100,000 in the 80s was unheard of. In total, Larson took 40 spins in a row without ever hitting a whammy. By the end of his turn, the host Peter Tamarkin had just run out of things to say.
Michael, you can't get rid of the 4 spins. You can't sell those spins.
This kind of dominance was unheard of. People working on the show were going nuts behind the scenes as well. No one had ever come close to Larson's score before, so they were concerned about what he'd figured out and whether they should give him his prize money. And on the flip side, could you imagine if he'd earned all that money and then hit a whammy with like 90,000 bucks? That concern was running through Tamarkin's head as well. Larson did have a game plan he was sticking to, but one mistake would have lost him a metric ton of money. And by the end of the game, fatigue was starting to set in, so the longer he went on, the more likely he'd be to mess up. Here's the thing though, before Press Your Luck premiered, producers of the show raised concerns that 5 patterns would be too few for the show. They figured that somebody like Larson would come along at some point, and they were right. But they didn't add any more patterns before they started taping the show. At the end of the day, Larson didn't do anything that went against Press Your Luck's rules. He noticed a predictable pattern and he took advantage, which was exactly what the producers were worried about. In 2003, GSN aired a 2-hour documentary called Big Bucks: The Press Your Luck Scandal. During the documentary, graphic designer Patrick Martin taught Larson's opponents the pattern, then gave Ed and Jamie a chance to hit the big bucks now that they knew it. It took some practice, but eventually Ed was able to hit his target consistently, which goes to show you that it's a pattern other contestants could have taken advantage of before Larson, had they noticed it. This was also the first time Larson's episodes were ever re-aired. Previously, the rights to Press Your Luck reruns belonged to USA Network, and CBS insisted they not air Larson's 2 episodes. And I can't entirely blame them. Watching your show get absolutely torn to shreds by some ice cream truck driver would have to be pretty embarrassing. But GSN was allowed to air the episodes as part of the documentary 19 years later. And nowadays they're part of Buzzr's regular rotation of Press Your Luck episodes. After Larson's show was finished taping, the producers of the show met with Michael Brockman. Yup, same first name as Larson, bear with me here. The head of CBS's daytime TV department to decide what to do. Eventually they decided to award Larson his prize money, which was definitely the right move. He hadn't broken any existing rules of the show, so they decided they had no reason to keep his winnings from him. But CBS had a winnings cap at the time, stating that if you won $25,000 on a game show, you wouldn't be eligible to come back as a returning champion. So despite his big win, that was Larson's only game on Press Your Luck. After Larson's appearance, the board was reprogrammed with far more patterns. That way nobody could crack the game wide open the way Michael did, and that carried over to future versions of the show as well. You couldn't do it on a whammy in 2002, and you can't do it on the current version of Press Your Luck either. Ed and Jamie were invited to compete on a special episode of Whammy, commemorating Larson's achievements on the original Press Your Luck. Michael had passed away in 1999, so his brother James took his place. And although the board was quote-unquote Larson-proof, as the host Todd Newton put it, James Larson still managed to win with a more modest score of $6,695. And now let's move on to another show, whose name I always mix up with Press Your Luck in my head for some reason if my brain goes on autopilot, The Price is Right. The story starts with Ted Slauson. He was one of 6 siblings, so they had to share the TV and agree on what to watch. Ted was reluctant to watch The Price is Right at first, but eventually he was hooked, so much so that he would start memorizing all the prices on the show. Over the years he maintained spreadsheets of all the prizes he'd seen, and he would constantly be testing himself. As soon as he turned 18, he started attending tapings of the show, hoping to become a contestant. It took a while for him to get picked to come on down, but until then, he yelled out prices from the audience, helping several contestants get them exactly right during the games. That's one thing I like about The Price is Right. You're able to yell out guesses and help contestants, which makes sense because most people aren't going to know the exact price of, like, a sailboat. On most other shows, yelling out guesses is a big no-no, which makes sense. Just as an example, telling people the answers during a trivia show kind of defeats the whole purpose, because it's all about testing the contestants' knowledge, not the knowledge of everybody in the building. You can't just be on the phone in the audience of a Jeopardy taping and yelling out stuff you just googled. The Price is Right is more about intuition and having a general idea of how much things cost, which sets it apart from a lot of other game shows out there. And Ted took full advantage of that to help as many people as he could. After attending a few shows, people started to take notice of Ted getting the prices exactly right, so they would turn to him for help. He even caught the attention of the host Bob Barker, even though he had yet to be a contestant at that point. But after a while, he was finally selected to play. He got up on stage with a perfect bid, obviously, winning a recliner in the 1-bid round. He had 2 Berkline recliners in his spreadsheets, and they both cost $5.99. After getting a kiss from one of the models, oh by the way, check out this t-shirt, he played Punch-a-Bunch and won $1,000, plus a bunch of smaller prizes. Unfortunately, he only got 55 cents in the Showcase Showdown, not good enough to advance to the final Showcase round. At the time, contestants couldn't be on The Price is Right more than once, so that closed the book on Slauson's time on the show for the time being. But later down the line, they got rid of that rule. Now you could play a second time as long as it's been at least 10 years since your last call to come on down. Ted decided to start going to tapings again with that rule change in place. So he got back to work memorizing prices. He wrote a program to help him study them all, eventually being able to go through a whole set in an hour or so. On the episode that aired September 22nd, 2008, Terry Kniess made it to the showcase round. On Contestants Row, he heard Ted's guess for the price of a big green egg ceramic cooker. He got it right on the nose with $11.75. He made it to the showcase by spinning 90 cents on the wheel. At this point, the wheel started turning in Ted's head. Ted's head. He met Terry and his wife Linda outside before the show, so he started doing the math in his head to help Terry out. His opponent Sharon got her showcase first, but Ted was working everything out anyway, because if you're up first, you can choose to pass your showcase to your opponent and take the other one. First up, a karaoke machine, $1 million, $1,000. Next up, a pool table, $2,800. The final item in the showcase was a $19,943 camper. Sharon did indeed pass the showcase on to Terry, at which point Ted had already whispered to Linda the exact price he came up with, $23,743. So that was Terry's bid. After Sharon's showcase, they went to commercial as usual, at which point everything came to a screeching halt. During the break, Kathy Greco came out and told Drew Carey and other folks working on the show that Terry got the bid exactly right. They stopped the show for about 10 minutes, trying to figure out how he got it on the nose. At that point, Carey feared that the show might be cancelled, because it was possible that somebody working for the show gave away the price to some fans, who were upset about producer Roger Dobkowitz recently being fired. We now know that's not the case, but at that moment, Carey worried that the whole show might be screwed, and he might be out of a job. So when you watch the end of the episode, it kinda makes sense why he wasn't very excited about Terry's bid.
Actual retail price, $23,743. You got it right on the nose. You win both showcases. Hasn't happened since 72 or 73, right on the nose.
In 2018, CJ Wallace released a documentary called Perfect Bid, The Man Who Knew Too Much, which you can watch for free here on YouTube. Slauson was the man who knew too much in question, and he revealed that the perfect bid came from him and his spreadsheets, contrary to Terry's claims that he got it on his own. Either way though, there was no foul play, and The Price is Right is still running to this day. Studying the show and memorizing the prices is fair game. The same way you'll spend a few days a week studying for a test, Slauson studied the show for decades to play it perfectly. He used all the information available to him to calculate the price of the showcase. And yeah, most people aren't going to study hundreds of zillions of prices to win on the show, but I don't think there's anything wrong with going above and beyond like that. It's the same kind of thing as, say, Scrabble players, who memorize words in the official dictionary to enhance their play. I could play the word baziques and score a bazillion points, and that's not cheating. Ted was pulling from his wealth of knowledge about The Price is Right in the same way. Not everybody was going to go to those lengths to win, but some people will choose to, and that's fine. After The Perfect Bid, The Price is Right made an effort to make sure someone like Ted couldn't come along and do the same thing again. They expanded the list of prizes, and they made the cars harder to price by putting different options on them. Today they might have a car with 4-wheel drive, and then a month from now they might offer the same car with all-wheel drive, and 2 Gatorades already in the cup holders. I'm lying about the Gatorade part, but you get the idea. They would mix and match these options to make them harder to memorize, more so than they did before. I think there's 2 main takeaways from these wins. First of all, Michael Larson and Terry Kniess' game show appearances are great examples of how people will stretch the truth to get more clicks and attention. If you go on YouTube and watch a video about game show cheaters, chances are one or both of these guys will come up. Here's 2 videos on the exact same topic from the same content farm, and Kniess comes up in both of them. I hate it here. Anyway, a lot of these videos acknowledge that they did indeed play fairly, but people will say they cheated anyway, at least at the very onset, because that's what's going to get viewers' attention. Larson and Kniess took full advantage of patterns the shows won't tell you about, so people will stretch the truth and try to turn it into something that it's not. And that's a pet peeve of mine. That's the main reason I made this video. I don't like being lied to on the internet, and acknowledging that it's not really cheating after clickbaiting you is almost worse. I've stretched the truth in video titles to an extent a couple of times, but it just feels slimy, man. The second takeaway is that people are gonna want to find an advantage in games they like, and that's not a bad thing. Roger Nielsen was a hockey coach who realized, hey, wait a second, none of the NHL teams are practicing in the offseason. Maybe I should have my guys do that. And yeah, that's fair game. He also did a bunch of other nonsense, but you can go watch the secret base video about him to learn more. Anyway, all I'm saying here is that the same way Nielsen did something that no other team did to gain an advantage, Michael and Ted found ways to do the same thing on their game shows without breaking any rules. The Price is Right has all sorts of other unwritten rules you can take advantage of. Prices on 10 chances will always end in a 0. If your price pricing trips, the most expensive one will usually be the one furthest away from Los Angeles. The highest digit on cover-up will almost always be wrong, because people under 6 feet tall can't reach it easily. Memorizing prices basically just takes that to the next level. There's nothing wrong with that in my eyes. There's only so many possible prices in the world, and once Ted realized that, he started keeping a list of prices. And that goes for other game shows as well. You may have seen this clip of Robert Santoli solving this puzzle with just one letter, kicking off his appearance on Wheel of Fortune.
Port and starboard.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's because he knew exactly what it was as soon as he saw the board. The reason for that is because Wheel does various theme weeks, and contestants are told their episode's theme before they appear on the show. The first toss-up puzzle often has something to do with the theme as well. On this particular show, the theme was Spin and Sail, sponsored by Carnival Cruise Lines. By compiling a list of puzzles from similar theme weeks in the past, Rob noticed that Port and Starboard had appeared at least a couple times before his episode. So as soon as he saw the ampersand in between a 4 and 9 letter word, he knew it was time to strike. Side note, I honestly thought it was pronounced Starboard before seeing this clip. Anyway, in a similar vein, there's all sorts of other material you can use to practice for other game shows. You can find most Jeopardy clues from old episodes on J-Archive, so a lot of champions have used that site to learn and practice. Pyramid often reuses categories from board games in previous episodes, so by watching and playing those, you can gain an edge on the show. There are countless other game shows with board game and video game adaptations, and those can be good practice material as well. You're not cheating by studying the information that's available to you. That's completely natural, and it makes sense that some people will take that to another level, which is what we've seen throughout this video. Everybody I've mentioned was playing by the rules, which is why it's annoying to see so many articles and videos calling them cheaters, especially when most of them admit that they're not actually cheating almost immediately. Alright, now that that's out of my system, that'll do it for this video. Leave a comment if there's any other game show topics you'd like to see me cover, and subscribe for more if this is your kind of thing. I also do daily shorts, so be on the lookout for those. I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night, fellas. Sleep well.